once I get into the book, it's going to be fantastic, and I'm not going to want to put it down. So stay tuned. I have no idea what this book, or this, I keep saying the wrong words. So if I need to use guild points to ignore this prompt and still stick it in for this class, I will. But that is, I know, as I was reading this, I was like, this is not, I'm having a great time. There's nothing in here that counts for the prompt. This is terrible lighting. I have no good lighting. But I also have no good place for my mic, so we're just going to hold it, and I'm going to be the person with a tiny mic. Hi everybody, my name is Kelsey, and we're about to get very, very nerdy with the third week of the Magical Readathon. So, it is Monday, which means it's the start of a new week. We have a new plan, and I do have a plan for this week, because this, I could not have predicted how well my reading is going. It is actually insane. I have 2 things left that are required for my career, and today is the 15th. We've reached the halfway point of the month, and I have reached the halfway point of all the books I wanted to read, including both careers, but I only have 2 books left that are required for the Master of Elements career. That is like my main focus. And considering how well the last 2 weeks went, I think it's a very good possibility that I will be able to get these 2 things done this week and maybe something else, and then I can focus on other fun things that I want to read from this TBR, because like there are a lot of things on this TBR that I'm like really excited to read, including the ones that I'm going to talk about here in a second. And I think that the third week, like, it's just going to be full fall vibes, because there's like 3 books specifically that I have in my head that are all in my fall TBR, and are all books that like I really want to pick up. So I feel very excited. And like I was doing the math last night. I know if you had seen my last week's vlog, you know that I used one of the scrolls from the Guild Emporium to DNF a book and still let it count. So I was sitting here and I was thinking about, you know, I've just kind of been using scrolls a couple of times here and there. They're only like 10 points. I almost said $10. They're only like 10 points. And I was sitting here thinking about like how many points do I actually have? And I'm not 100% sure, but I know for a fact that just completing the careers and participating in the Magical Readathon, not doing anything extra, which I have done. I've done a couple of extra things. I have 350 points minus like 20, so 330. So I feel pretty good about just using scrolls when I can. I say that because there are some scrolls that I can use at the very end of the semester, or like the end of this month, where I can like extend something into the month previous and still have it count, or like pick a couple of books and have them like fill multiple point prompts. So like I think there's a very big possibility I may have to move some things around at the end of the month. We'll see. I'm not doing anything obviously until like just see how my reading goes the next couple weeks. There's a very good chance I'm going to be able to fulfill both careers that I want to do. But Master of Elements, I feel very confident saying that that's going to be done this week. So let's talk about the books that are my like priority, my plan for the week. The first one I technically started last night, but I fell asleep somewhere in chapter 1, and I know my audiobook kept going, and I'm not sure where it ended, so I have to go figure out where I was. And that is Magical Meet Cute by Jean Meltzer. This one is for the first prompt, actually the first and only prompt I need for astronomy, which is a character with an invisible illness. Jean Meltzer is an author who, this is the only book I believe at this time, I know she's got one coming out later this year, but at the current time this is the only book by her that I haven't read. And I love her stuff, but she is a Jewish author and also has a chronic illness herself, so all of her books are like centered around a Jewish family or the Jewish faith, and also the main character has some form of chronic illness. I'm not sure what it is here. I did Google it. Well, okay, so I Googled it, and it said that fibromyalgia is in this book somewhere. Again, I made it like halfway through chapter 1, and it hadn't shown its head yet. So I feel very confident putting this in this prompt, because this author, like, that's what this author does. Plus, as you can tell from the cover, it's a little witchy. It's a rom-com. It's a little witchy. It's got like the perfect vibe for right now, and I'm very, very excited. So this book follows our main character, Faye, who used to live, I think, in like New York City. Yes. And she was a lawyer. She had like a relationship. She was about to, like, she was engaged. They were like a few months from getting married, and it just ended badly. And she said, I can't anymore. And so she sells her law firm and moves to Woodstock, New York, and takes up pottery. Or at least it's like, I think she's done pottery her whole life, but she starts a small business of making pottery. And she has what she calls herself a Jew witch. So like she's Jewish, she has a lot of belief in the Jewish traditions, but she uses like a grimoire and some things like that. So the book starts basically with her going to another failed singles night at the local synagogue, and as she's leaving, she sees anti-Semitic posters around the town. So she comes home, and it says here, she drunkenly turns to the only thing guaranteed to soothe her, pottery. A golem protector is what her town needs, and adding all the little details to make him her ideal man can't hurt, right? But when a seriously hot stranger mysteriously shows up the next day, Greg seems too good to be true, if you ignore the fact that Faye hit him with her bike, and that he subsequently lost his memory. So, did she produce this man out of thin air? Who knows? It's giving practical magic vibes. I'm all about it. Also, like I said, this is an author that I love, so honestly, anything she writes, I'm in for. So, this is my first one. Like I said, I technically started this last night, but I got like maybe 5 pages in and then fell asleep. So, we're going to be picking this one up a little bit later today. And then the other book that is required for my career is, what I'm choosing is The Double Vices by Chris Holcomb. This is the first in it's called The First Hidden Gotham Novel. It's a 20s queer mystery, and I'm very excited about it. It follows our main character, Dash, who is a gay speakeasy owner. It's in the height of New York City during the height of Prohibition, and everything turns on a dime. One of his club patrons is murdered, and so Dash and his friends must discover the killer while also outwitting a devious blackmailer. So this is one of I want to say the very first books that Chris gifted me, and I still haven't read it. It's the first in a series. It's an indie published book. It's queer. It's crime. Give me all the things. I'm very excited. So this is in for the first prompt of Animal Studies, which is just a debut book. And this author has written a few things. I think there's at least 1, maybe 2 more books in this series specifically, but I did some Googling, and this was the first book that he had ever written. So I'm excited to give it a try. I do have the audiobook for it. There wasn't an audiobook for a very long time, but now there is one, and that's going to, I think, help me out quite a lot. I'm excited to give it a shot. So these are the 2 books that are my priority for this week. I'm very excited. I think we're going to have a good week. Like I said, there's other things on here that I want to read. There's another graphic novel. There's a couple of other smaller books that we can fit in here and there if I need a break. But knowing me and Jean Meltzer, I'm going to get through that. Once I get into the book, it's going to be fantastic, and I'm not going to want to put it down. So stay tuned. I have no idea what this week's going to be. It's a normal week for me. There's nothing crazy work-wise. Next week is going to be absolutely insane. So I have no idea what reading is going to be like next week, which is why we might be using a lot of the scrolls. But that is a problem for future Kelsey. Current Kelsey is going to try to get as much done as she can this week, so that maybe next week will be a little more chill. But either way, these are my priorities. I'm going to read these 2 first. And I will come back to you when I've made any progress in Magical Meet Cute, or if I finished it, because who knows, I may just fly through it in a day, and that is honestly incredibly possible, knowing me. Hello, it's been a few days. I think I came to you on Monday, and it is Friday. So I have a few things to update you on. Not a ton, considering that it's been 4 days, but I did finish a book, which is exciting, which, of course, Magical Meet Cute, the bookmark is still in it for some reason. I finished this one last night, and I gave it 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. It was one of the better ones by Jean Meltzer. I've had a couple of books by this author that I've loved, and they're 5 stars, and then I had at least one book that was just kind of mediocre. This one fell kind of in between. It was very well done. In my opinion. Trigger warnings for this book is there's not a ton, but they're very present in the plot. Obviously, the first one is anti-Semitic language. That is like the whole plot that brings these two people together, as these flyers are around town, and that like culminates in like trying to find this group. And then there is some like undercover work, if you will, that takes place later in this book, and lots of things are thrown around. So it's a lot of conversation about discrimination and language that places a lot of the world's problems, let's say, on Jews and the Jewish culture. So just be wary of that. Like that's a very big part of the plot. Also, our main female lead, Faye, she grew up in a very abusive household, both mentally and physically, which caused a permanent disability in one of her fingers. So, like, that's a huge part of the plot, and obviously the trauma that comes with it. And the trauma that comes with it is the bigger part of the plot. And the trauma that comes with that is a bigger part of the plot, and like what Faye is like, how she deals with that, and how that makes itself known in her relationships, not just romantic, but like just in general. So it is a big conversation. So those two things are, I want to say, like, there's a lot with this book, but those are the two big triggers that I can think of off the top of my head, and they both play a really big part of the plot. So just kind of be aware, because there is a lot of darkness in Faye's past specifically. But what I thought about this book that was really interesting that I didn't expect going in is that it is dual POV. So you have both of them. And the fact that one of them, Greg, our male lead, forgot his memory. And the fact that like we're in his head while he has forgotten his memory, and he knows that he's forgotten his memory, and he like, you can see him trying to figure things out, especially really, really early on, because right after the accident, like, I don't know if I mentioned it, but like, she hits him with her bike, and that's kind of what causes his amnesia. There is a lot, I will say, when it comes to like the medical side of things, take that with a grain of salt, because there's some stuff that happens early on as well as late on with his condition and his amnesia that feels a little too picture perfect, if that makes sense, in the sense of like, things got wrapped up a little too neatly, or things happened a specific way that I'm like, I don't know if that's actually accurate, but I know nothing about that kind of thing, so I could be very wrong. So she hits him with her bike, and he has amnesia because of that, and so he comes home with her, and she takes care of him while he's trying to figure out who he is. But there is early on, his speech is not great. Like, his thoughts are all coherent, and he knows that he's forgotten things, and he wants to say these very complex thoughts, but he cannot get more than like 1 or 2 word answers across, at least at the very, very beginning. Obviously, as he continues to get better, his language skills get better. So it's interesting being in his head and having him have all these thoughts and think all these things, and then be only able to say like yes, no, or grunt, especially, like I said, in the first few days. So I liked having the dual POV, because you see the two of them working together. You see her take on his recovery. You see his take on his own recovery. I thought that was really interesting. I don't know why I suspected this entire book would be in her perspective, but I did, and the fact that it wasn't, I thought was a very good choice. I loved the romance in here. Was like spectacular. Like, because he's basically a blank slate, there is a lot of conversation and a lot of talk about safety in this book. And because like, she doesn't know who he is, he doesn't know who he is, he could be a terrible person, and they just hope that he's not. And so there's a lot of growth between these two. So if you like a lot of I wouldn't say this is a character driven story, because it's not, but if you like a lot of that, like those deeper conversations between two people, this is a great book for that, because that's exactly what these two do. They like have a lot of conversations, and a lot of stuff comes out about her past specifically. Obviously not his, because he doesn't know what it is, but like her past specifically, a lot of stuff comes out through these conversations. So this is a more character driven romance, I guess is what I'll say, because this is very light on the smut. There's a lot of sexual tension between our two characters. There's a lot of want and lust is not the right word, but that's the only thing I can think of. And he reads a lot of books throughout this book. Like, he he can't fall asleep, so he reads her book collection, which has anything from self-help to romance in it. And so, like, he'll read sections of those romance novels, which will be a little smutty. And, like, they will have conversations, and, like, you can hear his thoughts when he thinks that she's attractive and vice versa. So, like, sex plays a part in the book, but it's not, like, on the page. Like, it's not between the two of them, if that makes sense. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of thoughts, but not a lot of actions. That's what I think I mean to say. So if you are someone who likes the spice but doesn't want to see the spice, there you go. I thought this was very well done. Also, like this cover. They're so adorable. And I like this. It was very light in the witchiness. It is not really magical, but it is kind of fantastical. It's got that weird, like, maybe magical realism is like, it's not a magical realism book, but that might be the right word that I'm looking for, because, like, there's not fantasy, but there is. And I just thought it was fun. I just thought it was a good time. I plowed through this. I know it's Friday and I finished it basically in 4 days, but 2 of those days I read like a chapter or 2, and then the other 2 days I read like half the book. So it was very well done. I'm so glad I read it. It's cute. It's romancy, but it has a more real story underneath it with all of this, like, conversations on the Jewish culture and things like that. So I liked it. I gave it 4.5 stars. My question with this book is, so it's in, I don't remember what prompt I said it was in for, but, or what class I said it was in for, but the prompt was an invisible illness, which I assumed there was some sort of chronic illness in here. And there's not. Like, she has a disability, and she talks about that from her past. But I am saying, because one of the things that comes up a lot is that, like, the parent that was the parent that, like, is the problem, I would say, is her mom. And I have my suspicions on what illnesses her mom has, but it's never said in the book. So, like, I'm not gonna, like, project onto these characters or maybe, like, say something that's wrong, but, like, I have my suspicions. There's no proof, and it's not said in the book. But the mom definitely has some sort of mental illness, and I'm gonna count that as my invisible illness. I think, to make this work for the prompt, because, like, Google done lied to me. Google said my fibromyalgia was in this book, and it was not. If it was in here, I missed it, because, like, the bigger thing that is, like, prominent in her brain is her, like, she has a disability in her finger. And so that's a big part, like, for her, because she's a ceramicist. She, like, makes pottery. So having a hand that doesn't do what you want it to do is a little problematic at times. So if I need to use guild points to ignore this prompt and still stick it in for this class, I will. But that is, I know, as I was reading this, I was like, this is not, I'm having a great time. There's nothing in here that counts for the prompt. Either way, I have finished the book, and I'm very excited, which means I have one more book that is required for my career, which I did technically start last night, which of course is the Double Vice. You guys know I've mentioned it. I did the first chapter, so I'm a whole, like, 14 pages in. I'm actually going on a random road trip tomorrow, 1-day road trip, so I have a lot of audiobook time in the car, depending on how Peanut is feeling. So a lot of this may get read tomorrow. I hope a lot of this gets read tomorrow. We shall see. I did start it. Like, not a lot has happened. I am interested. I don't love, so far I can't tell if I don't love the writing or if I don't love the audiobook narrator, because the audiobook narrator, I feel like I've heard before, but he gives off this pompous, holier than thou vibe, which I feel like is not the vibe for the characters in here. It's just, there's something about it that doesn't, like, quite connect. So I need to read a little bit more to see what is happening here. Either way, I literally have no opinions besides that, because I am barely in it. I also randomly picked up today Rat Queens. I'm not very far into it, and I am not loving it, but I like it. It feels silly to DNF, so I'm probably just going to suffer my way through it. I don't want to use guild points to DNF this book, but, like, I'm not in love with it. But it is for the prompt. I don't remember what class it is, but it's for the prompt where you're giving an author a second chance. I read the first one in the series, and it was kind of okay. I feel like I remember liking it more in the moment. Either way, we're just going to keep going with this one and just dip it out occasionally, see what happens. We'll see. Don't feel like it's going to be, I feel like this might be an unhaul for the series. Either way, that's what I'm currently reading at the moment, are these 2. So we'll see what happens. I'll let you know probably on Sunday when I come up with a vlog how things went, because Sunday's a really big day, like work-wise for me, so I don't know if I'm going to have any time to breathe until nighttime. That's way more than you need to know. That's my update. I don't really have one. So I need to go get Peanut because she is awake from her nap now. I am working from home, obviously, so I need to get a few more things done. I have quite a few things I need to do before leaving tomorrow. So it's going to be a little bit of a hectic day for me. But that's my plan. I'm going to do something now. Hello. This is terrible lighting. I have no good lighting, but I also have no good place for my mic, so we're just going to hold it, and I'm going to be the person with a tiny mic. It is Sunday. I forgot what day of the week it was. It's Sunday, so I'm here to wrap up this vlog. I don't have a ton of things to say. I did finish Rat Queens Volume 2. Whenever I can tell you that I had started it, I also finished it that day. I ended up giving it 3 stars, which I'm actually surprised about because I went in expecting it to be a 2, to be honest. It got better. Like, it definitely got better. There was some stuff in it plot-wise that I feel like helped it along. Do I care enough to continue? Not even remotely. It got, like, barely a 3-star, and I think it's just kind of fine. I don't have any plans on continuing with it. I think my biggest problem with it is, like, these 4 are just kind of awful, and they rub me the wrong way. The way that I phrased it in my, like, Goodreads review was that it feels like they're playing at liking each other instead of actually liking each other, because they just kind of pick fights with each other, and I have lots of questions about why they're friends. And yes, they all fight together when it is necessary to fight together. I don't know, it just kind of feels forced and dumb, and there is a cliffhanger at the end of this one, so I went to go see what the 3rd synopsis was about, and it explained what the cliffhanger meant, and I still don't care enough to continue. So I did it, but I'm definitely going to unhaul the 2 volumes that I own. This one was for the 3rd prompt of Restoration, which is to give an author a second chance. So there's multiple authors. There's 3 technically for this one. And I also know that the artist changed in, like, the 4th volume, I want to say. I don't know what the tea is on that and why that changed. I'll keep this long enough to do my wrap up, but it's gonna go. But I did finish it, which means now I finished all of Restoration, which is very exciting. I did finish that. I know it wasn't a ton of things, like, it wasn't a big commitment, but I just didn't care. So that was, like, a good hurdle to get over. I am still reading The Double Vice. I've made it almost halfway, not quite. I am on chapter 15. I'm 152 pages. I didn't get nearly enough, or really any reading done yesterday in the car. Peanut stayed awake for most of the ride, and this is not particularly an audiobook that I love listening to. Actually, most of my books I don't love listening to when she's in the car, because they are more adult. I know she's still young and it may not process all the way, but it makes me feel better not having it on. Especially this one, which is set in the 20s. I know I talked to you a little bit about what it was about when I came to you at the beginning of the vlog, but it's set in the 20s and it's incredibly, what am I trying to say? It's hard to get through in the sense of, okay, so in the sense of both the material, but also like the writing style. The material is hard to get into because, like I said, it's set in the 20s. It follows a gay speakeasy owner, and he is dealing with some people who are incredibly homophobic. And so, because of that, there is some terminology that is used that were slangs at the time or were derogatory terms for the queer community and people in the queer community. There's also a character that was misgendered a lot at the very beginning, and by a very hateful character. And so, like, it was just, it's very stressful. Like, I don't want her to hear those types of things. So that is beside the point. So, like, it's a hard book to get through because of that. But on the other side of it, like, this is a time period that I enjoy reading about. I enjoy the time period of the 20s in certain respects. It is not a time period I know a ton of things about. Like, I would say that I am pretty knowledgeable on things like the Regency, Victorian time period in England, things like that. 20s is not it. 20s America, 20s New York City, not it. So there's a lot of slang terms for certain people, certain things, just like what they use on the everyday, that I have no idea what they mean by. So, like, the author did do a note at the very beginning and talked about, like a note from the author, talked about the terminology when used in the LGBTQ plus community specifically. So, like, I know that he has done his research, and I would assume that the rest of it is also pretty historically accurate. So I would assume that he has done all his research in finding the slang of the time, the words that were used normally. And there are some that, like, I've heard used in other books, movies, TV shows, whatever it is, set in the 20s. So I know some of them. I don't know a lot of them. So I am lost because I'm trying to figure out what is happening or what these words mean based on context clues. And so this book takes a lot of brain power. So listening to just the audio on in the background is not the best. So I have to give it a lot of my attention. So had I hoped to finish this book this week? Yes, I came into this week very confidently, and it has not gone according to plan, which is fine because I still finished 2 things, and one of them was required, and this is the only thing that's left that's required for my career. And it has not been the best reading week, and that's fine. So we're going to bring this over into next week. I'm wondering if I should start another book on top of this one that is one that I'm really excited to pick up, so I have options when, like, this one may be a little too much, or is one that, like, I'm just not feeling the mood for at the moment. So, like, next week I can have a couple of books that I can pop in and out of. I don't have any more small books. That's the problem. So I don't know. We'll see what next week holds, but I am bringing this one over, and I'm enjoying it. Like, it's not anywhere close to a DNF. Like, I suspect that this will get at least a 3.5, maybe even more, depending on how it goes. Because, like, the mystery is really interesting. I'm really invested in that part of it and what's going on. It's just taking a lot of brain power to do that, and I didn't realize that going in. So now that I know that, I can dedicate, when I have the time to dedicate that brain power to it, I can. So that is where I'm at. So this week didn't go according to plan, but I'm still happy with how it went. So I started this week with Magical Meet Cute by Jean Meltzer, which was in for the prompt of astronomy, which is a character with an invisible illness. Again, I talked about my possibility with that one. I gave it 4.5 stars. Rat Queens, Volume 2, which, like I said, was 4, Give an Author a Second Chance, The Last in Restoration, which I gave 3.5 stars to. And then my final book, which I'm rolling over, The Double Vice by Chris Holcomb, which is in for, I think I didn't mention this one earlier, the first in Animal Studies, which is a debut book. And this is this author's first book, which I keep forgetting because, like, it's written very well for a debut. It does not feel like your stereotypical debut, which is a good feeling. Anyway, so this is the one that I'm rolling over to next week. So I don't know what next week's going to hold. I think I mentioned that next week's schedule is going to be insanity for me. So it may be more of just me updating you randomly throughout the week. I will let you know. I do not know what it's going to hold, but knowing I only have half of this book left, I feel very confident. I know I said that going into this week, but I feel confident finishing that next week. And maybe I'll fit something else in. who knows? I was very confident going into this month, or very confident going into like the third week, and I've dipped a little bit, but that's okay. That's totally fine. We will make things work. So that is my update. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video vlog. I have no idea what it's going to turn into because I haven't even touched editing it yet. So we'll see. I hope it's something that you enjoy watching or have enjoyed watching. But as always, if you've read the books that I have mentioned in today's video, please let me know your thoughts, or let me know what you are currently reading, whether you're participating or not. Let me know what you are currently reading as of right now. But if you like this video, and I very much hope that you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you want to be part of this awesome growing family. I've also got all my social media down there, as well as other fun bookish links, so check all that out, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.